I spoke to something that had been dead for 13 years, and now it won't let me leave. The rule in our house was never written down, never explained, never even spoken out loud. It was learned through silence, through my uncle's cold stares, through the suffocating weight that pressed down on you when you even thought about breaking it. The rule was absolute. Ignore her completely. She was my aunt. She lived with us in that old ranch house outside Bakersfield. She was as real as the cracked leather sofa in our living room, as solid as the water-stained ceiling above my bed. But to my Uncle Derek, and therefore to me, she was invisible, a ghost we'd all agreed didn't exist. I was 6 when I came to live with him. My parents died in a pileup on the 99, and Derek was the only family left. He took me in without question. But he brought me into a house with a secret that slowly poisoned everything. Every morning at 6:30, she'd already be in the kitchen when I stumbled downstairs. She wore the same faded jeans and oversized flannel shirts, her graying hair pulled back in a loose ponytail. She'd turn from the stove and smile at me, but it was a smile that never touched her eyes, just a sad, desperate curve of her lips. "Morning, sweetie," she'd say, her voice soft as moth wings. "I made you scrambled eggs." I'd walk right past her. My eyes would slide over her like she was furniture, focusing on the coffee maker or the calendar on the wall behind her. I'd pour myself a bowl of generic cornflakes and sit at the table where Derek would already be eating, his jaw working mechanically, his gaze fixed on nothing. She'd stand there for a moment, her smile faltering before setting a third plate between us. Steam rose from perfectly cooked eggs, bacon arranged in neat strips, toast cut diagonally. It sat there untouched while Derek and I ate our cereal in crushing silence. The only sounds were our spoons scraping ceramic and the hum of the ancient refrigerator. Then she'd sit down in her chair, hands folded in her lap, and watch us. Sometimes she'd try again. "Looks like it might get up to 100 today," she'd offer. "You boys should stay hydrated." Derek would just chew. I'd take another bite, the cornflakes turning to cardboard in my mouth. She'd wait, hope dying in her eyes by degrees, till she'd finally give up and stare down at her own plate. Dinner was the same ritual. She'd cook something elaborate, the smell of pot roast or fried chicken filling the house. She'd set 3 places with actual napkins, actual silverware. Derek and I would sit. She'd serve us, her movements careful and practiced, like she was performing a choreographed dance she'd done 1,000 times. Then she'd sit and try to pull us into conversation. "How was the hardware store today?" she'd ask Derek. He'd grunt, cutting his meat into identical squares. "And you, honey? Did you have fun at school?" I'd mumble something into my plate, shoveling food in so I wouldn't have to answer properly. It went on like this for years. Every single day was a performance of pretending this woman didn't exist. She cooked for us, cleaned for us, moved through that house like a maid we'd all agreed to pretend we couldn't see. I grew up in a house with 3 people, but lived in a world that only acknowledged 2. When you're a kid, you accept the bizarre as normal. That's just how it is. The sun rises, rain falls. We don't talk to Aunt Caroline. It was a fact of existence. I learned to blur her at the edges of my vision, to tune out her voice like background static. She became part of the wallpaper. But around my 18th birthday, something shifted. The acceptance started rotting into something uglier. First confusion, then a guilt that ate at me from the inside. I started really seeing her. The deep lines carved around her mouth, the way her shoulders curved inward when we ignored her, the way she'd sometimes reach out as if to touch Derek's shoulder when she passed behind his chair, but always stopped just short, her hand hovering in empty air. She was profoundly, devastatingly alone, and I was hoping to do that to her. My perception of Derek changed too. The stoic man who'd taken me in started looking like something else. A jailer, a torturer. What had she done to deserve this? An affair? Some unforgivable sin I'd been too young to remember. Whatever it was, this punishment was grotesque. It was calculated cruelty dressed up as normalcy, the resentment built like pressure behind a dam. I started having trouble sleeping. Late at night, I'd hear soft sounds from their bedroom down the hall, muffled crying, the kind where you bury your face in a pillow because you don't want anyone to know you're falling apart. How could Derek lie next to her every night, hear that, and feel nothing? What kind of man does that? I began to see it as control, or simple cruelty. He'd erased her, stripped her of her voice, her presence, her basic human dignity. And I had been his accomplice for 12 years. Every ignored question, every time I looked through her like she was glass, I was tightening the screws. The breaking point came on a Thursday in March. It was one of those oppressively hot days where the valley air feels thick enough to choke on. I was in the living room pretending to study for a test, but the words on the page might as well have been hieroglyphics. She came in and stood by the window, staring out at the brown fields and the shimmering heat. She wasn't trying to talk to me. She was just standing there, watching the dead grass bend in the hot wind. Then she started humming, a strange melancholic tune I didn't recognize but that somehow felt familiar, like something from a dream I couldn't quite remember. I looked up, watched her reflection in the window glass. Her shoulders were shaking. She was crying again, silently, staring out at a world she was part of but couldn't seem to touch. Something inside me broke. Years of suppressed guilt, of silent rebellion, of grief for this woman I'd never been allowed to know. It all came crashing through at once. This was wrong. Fundamentally, horrifically wrong. I couldn't do it anymore. I waited. Derek had a routine. Every Thursday evening at 7, he'd drive into town for a meeting at the Elks Lodge. It was his weekly escape. 2 hours where he didn't have to maintain the awful charade. When I heard his truck rattle down the gravel driveway, the house fell into a different kind of quiet, one that wasn't enforced but simply empty. Except it wasn't empty. She was still there. I found her in the kitchen doing dishes, her back to me. My heart was slamming against my ribs so hard I thought she'd hear it. My mouth had gone completely dry. It felt like I was about to step off a cliff, like speaking would break some fundamental law of physics and the whole world would shatter. I forced the words out. Aunt Caroline, my voice cracked on her name. It felt foreign in my mouth, heavy and wrong. After 12 years of silence, she went completely still. Her hands, submerged in soapy water, stopped moving. The silence that followed was so complete, I could hear my own pulse hammering in my ears. Slowly, like she was afraid any sudden movement would break a spell, she turned around. Her face went through a dozen emotions in the span of a heartbeat. Shock, disbelief, then something that looked like pure, radiant joy, so intense it was almost painful to witness. You. Her voice broke. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Oh my God, you can see me. You can finally see me. The words landed strange. Wrong somehow. I took a step closer. What do you mean? I said. I've always seen you. Every day. Her brow furrowed in confusion, but the smile stayed locked on her face, like she physically couldn't let it go. But you never looked at me, never spoke. That was Derek, I said, his name tasting like ash. It was his role. He made me. I was just a kid. I didn't understand, but I'm not a kid anymore. And what he's doing to you is sick. Understanding washed over her features, followed by a shadow of that familiar sadness. She reached out and took my hand. Her skin was cold, not just cool, but actually cold, like meat pulled straight from a refrigerator. But her grip was strong. Real. Your uncle, she started, then shook her head. He's been through a lot. He does what he thinks is right. But it doesn't matter now. This can be our secret, can't it? Just between us. I nodded, my throat too tight for words. The relief was overwhelming, like I'd been holding my breath underwater for 12 years and could finally surface. We stood there in that dim kitchen, just holding hands. She told me she loved me, that she'd watched me grow up, that she was proud of who I was becoming. She asked about school, my friends, my life. 12 years of unspoken questions poured out of her in a torrent. We talked until we heard Derek's truck crunching on the gravel outside. Panic seized us both. She squeezed my hand once hard, a conspiratorial smile on her face. "Our secret," she whispered. Then she turned back to the sink like nothing had happened. I ran to my room, my heart racing, and made it there just as the front door opened. The rest of the evening passed in the usual suffocating silence. But now it felt different, charged. When she looked at me across the dinner table, there was something new in her eyes, a shared secret. For the first time in my life, I felt like I had an ally in that house. We continued our secret conversations over the next week. Whenever Derek went out, we'd talk. I learned about her favorite books, the music she used to love, the places she dreamed of visiting. She was sharp and funny and warm. She was a complete person, someone Derek had tried to bury alive. And with every conversation, I felt like I was helping her dig her way out. My anger at Derek grew exponentially. He was a monster. Not the loud, violent kind, but something worse. Cold, methodical. He'd stolen 12 years from both of us. I started thinking about leaving, taking her with me, getting us both away from him. I felt a fierce protectiveness I'd never experienced before. Then came yesterday morning. I woke up and the house was too quiet. There was no smell of coffee, no sound of Derek's AM radio muttering the news from the kitchen. I lay there for a while, waiting, but the silence stretched until it felt unnatural, threatening. I finally got up and went downstairs. The kitchen was empty, coffee pot cold, the newspaper still in its plastic sleeve on the porch. A chill ran down my spine despite the already building heat of the day. I checked the hall downstairs. Nothing. I went back up and knocked on their bedroom door. No answer. I pushed it open. The room was empty. The bed was made with military precision. Derek's side of the closet hung open, his work shirts arranged by color. Her side was the same. Everything looked normal, but their absence screamed. I checked the detached garage. His truck was gone. At first I thought maybe he'd just left early for work, but Derek never left without telling me. Never. And where was she? Had he taken her somewhere? The thought sent ice through my veins. Had he found out about our secret? I spent the whole day in escalating panic, called Derek's cell 15 times. Every call went straight to voicemail. Called the hardware store where he worked. His boss said he hadn't shown up, hadn't called in, which had never happened in 20 years. I didn't know who to call about Caroline. She didn't have a phone, didn't have friends I knew of. Her entire existence was contained within the walls of our house. By evening, I was losing it, pacing the empty rooms, the silence pressing in like physical weight. Had he hurt her, taken her somewhere to punish her? Punish me? The darkest possibilities started spiraling through my mind. I had to find something, anything, some clue about where they'd gone. I ended up back in their bedroom. It felt wrong to be there, to invade their privacy, but I was desperate. I went through drawers, looked under the bed, checked the closet. Nothing but clothes and shoes and the faint smell of Derek's Old Spice. Then I saw it. On the floor of his closet, pushed back behind a row of work boots, a wooden box, old scarred wood with tarnished brass hinges. I'd never seen it before. It wasn't locked. My hand shook as I opened it. Inside were notebooks, a stack of them. Identical black composition books with marbled covers. The kind we used in school. I pulled out the top one. Derek's neat, blocky handwriting filled the pages. The first entry was dated almost 14 years ago. I sat on the edge of their bed, my hands trembling, and I started reading. September 9th, 1 year today. 365 days since the fire. The house still smells like smoke sometimes, even though we rebuilt everything. I can still hear Caroline screaming, still see her running back inside for those photo albums. The roof came down before the firefighters could get to her. Sometimes I wake up and I can hear the sound it made, like the whole world cracking in half. My nephew asks for her every day. He's only 6, too young to understand death. How do I explain that his aunt, the only mother figure he has left, burned to death in front of us? The coroner said smoke inhalation probably took her before the flames did, like that's supposed to be a comfort. My blood turned to ice water. I read it again and again. Fire. She died. No. Impossible. I just talked to her yesterday, held her hand. It had to be a mistake. A different notebook, different Caroline, but it was Derek's handwriting. His bedroom. I kept reading, my stomach churning. March 15th, 2 years later. He did it again today. He was playing with his toy cars in the living room and he just stopped, pointed toward the kitchen, said Aunt Caroline is making lunch. I went to look. Kitchen was empty. I reminded him that Caroline was gone. We've been over this 100 times. He just shook his head. Got upset? No. She's right there, he said. Then he described what she was wearing. Blue jeans and her old pearl snap shirt. The same thing she was wearing when she died. The same outfit we buried her in. I felt cold all over. He's 8. His mind is playing tricks. Grief does things to kids. That's all this is. April 7th. It's not his imagination. He talks to her constantly now, and I've started to see things. Movement in my peripheral vision when he says she's walking past, a whiff of her perfume and rooms she supposedly just left. This morning I was in the hallway and he was in his bedroom chattering away. I asked who he was talking to. Aunt Caroline, he said. She's telling me a story. And then I heard it, faint but unmistakable. A woman's voice coming from his room, the voice I heard die in that fire. I almost vomited right there in the hallway. April 29th, I confronted it today. My nephew was sitting on the couch having a full conversation with empty air. I stood in the doorway and I said her name, asked it what it wanted. My nephew looked at me with pure terror in his eyes, and the air in the room changed, got heavy, cold. A pressure built in my skull like I was diving too deep underwater. I felt malice. Pure, focused hatred coming from the empty space on the couch. It looked like her. It's like her. But when I forced myself to really look at where my nephew was staring, I saw it, just for a second. The shape was right, but the eyes were wrong. Black, empty, like staring into deep space. This thing isn't Caroline. My sister-in-law is dead. This is something else. A parasite, a thing wearing her shape like a costume. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely hold the notebook. This was insane. Derek had lost his mind. Grief had broken him. That's all this was. It had to be. I grabbed the next notebook, kept reading. May 15th, I've tried everything, called in every favor I had. A priest came and tried to do a blessing. He left after 10 minutes, pale and shaking, saying he couldn't help us. A woman who claimed to be a medium came next. She took one look at my nephew, at the space beside him, and ran for her car. Didn't even take the money I offered. The last person was an old man, a retired professor of folklore from Berkeley. He stayed for 3 hours, asked questions, took notes. When he was done, he told me what it was. A mimic, he called it. A shade. He said it feeds on grief and emotional energy. It attached itself to my nephew because his grief was fresh. His mind was open. It wears Caroline's shape because that's what draws him in. And it will never leave. Moving won't help. It's anchored him now. He said the worst thing we can do is acknowledge it. Recognition gives it power. Attention makes it stronger. If we feed it, it will eventually consume him completely, drain him. You showed me photographs from other cases, people in comas, eyes open, but nobody home. He said we have to starve it. No matter how cruel it seems, we have to act like it doesn't exist. We have to cut off its food supply. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna make my nephew hate me. I'm gonna become a monster in his eyes, because the alternative is watching that thing hollow him out from the inside. God forgive me. The notebook slipped from my hands, the room tilted. Every memory from the last 12 years rearranged itself into a new picture. A horrifying picture. I lunged for the last notebook, the most recent one. My hands were slick with sweat, barely able to turn the pages. I found an entry from last week, Thursday. He spoke to it tonight. I knew this day would come. I've seen the way he's been looking at it lately. The guilt eating him alive. He thinks I'm the villain. Maybe I am, but I'd rather he hate me and survive than love me and die. But now he's broken the rule. He's opened the door. When I came home from the lodge, the air was different, thicker, and it was stronger, more solid. The sadness in its eyes was gone, replaced by something else. Victory. I have to end this. The old professor, before he left, he gave me one final option, a last resort. He said if it ever fed enough to fully anchor itself, there was a way to bind it, to trap it. But it requires a life. In exchange, a soul. He said it would kill me. But what kind of life have I been living? A prison guard in my own home, hated by my nephew. If dying means he goes free, then that's an easy choice. I can hear them whispering in the kitchen right now. I love you, kid. I hope someday you understand. I hope you forgive me for everything. That was the last entry. The notebook fell from my numb fingers. Derek's disappearance, the empty house. He went to perform the ritual, to sacrifice himself, to save me from the thing he believed had killed Caroline and taken her shape. And I'd been feeding it for a week. I thought of her hand in mine. How cold it was. I thought of her words. You can finally see me. Like my acknowledgement was something to be earned, hunted. I thought of the triumph in her eyes. Then I heard it, humming, that sad, strange tune, coming from downstairs. Footsteps in the hallway, slow, deliberate, heavier than they should be. Panic seized me, pure animal terror. I scrambled off the bed and threw the lock on the bedroom door. The click echoed like a gunshot. I backed away, my eyes locked on the door handle, my breath coming in short, sharp gasps. The footsteps came up the stairs, unhurried, patient, not the light steps I remembered. These had weight, substance. She was stronger now. I'd made her stronger. The humming stopped right outside the door. Honey, her voice, Caroline's voice, but wrong, coated in something sweet and cloying that made my skin crawl. Are you in there? I woke up and the house was so quiet. I pressed myself against the far wall, my hand clamped over my mouth to muffle my breathing. I talked to Derek. She called through the door, her voice crystal clear, like she was standing right next to me. He called just now. He's sorry for everything. He explained it all. He knows he was wrong to keep us apart. Liar, he's dead. You know he's dead. You killed him. He said he just needs some time away. The voice continued, to clear his head, but he gave us his blessing. He wants us to be together, just you and me. Isn't that wonderful? I held my breath, praying, please just go away. Please. I know you're in there, sweetheart. I can feel you. She cooed, "Come on, open the door. I'll make you breakfast. Anything you want." She never made me breakfast. That was always Derek. "Please, don't shut me out again. Not after you finally let me in. Everything's going to be okay now. I'll take care of you. We'll be a real family." Silence, then a new sound. The doorknob rattling. Gently at first, then harder. The lock held, but the whole door shook in its frame. My phone. It was in my pocket. I pulled it out with shaking hands, nearly dropped it. My thumb hovered over 911. What could I possibly say? There's something pretending to be my dead aunt in my uncle's journal say it's a demon that feeds on attention. They'd send me to a psych ward. The rattling stopped. For a moment, nothing. Then a new sound began, a soft scratching, like fingernails dragging down the wood, slow, rhythmic, scrape, 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 patient and possessive. I didn't care anymore. I hit the call button. 911, what's your emergency? I cupped my hand around the phone. There's an intruder in my house. I'm locked in a bedroom upstairs. Second floor. Can you describe the intruder, sir? The scratching continued. I can't see them. They're outside the door. Please hurry. Officers are on the way. Stay on the line. I ended the call. The scratching stopped the instant I did. Like it heard. Like it knew. The silence that rushed back was worse than the noise. Heavier. More menacing. It's waiting. It knows I called for help. It knows its time might be limited. Or maybe it's just enjoying this. I'm still trapped in here. I've called the police and I don't know what they'll find. Maybe nothing. Maybe it'll just vanish when they arrive and they'll find Derek's notebooks and think I'm the one who's insane. Think I did something to him. But I'm writing this down, getting it all out as fast as I can on my phone. I need someone to know the truth. I need you to understand what really happened here. In case the police don't believe me. In case I don't make it out of this room. The scratching just started again. Harder this time. Faster. The wood is starting to splinter near the lock. I can hear her breathing on the other side. Heavy. Wet. Like lungs full of fluid. "I'm getting impatient, honey," she says, and her voice doesn't sound like Caroline anymore. It's deeper, raspier, like gravel sliding over metal. "You've been very rude, after all I've done for you. After 12 years of cooking and cleaning and loving you. And this is how you repay me." The door shudders, something hits it hard. Once, twice. Derek thought he could trap me. She hisses. Thought he could bind me with this pathetic little ritual. Do you know what happened to him? Do you want to know what I did? I don't want to hear this. I clamp my hands over my ears, but her voice cuts through. I peeled him apart piece by piece, started with his fingers, pulled them off one by one while he screamed. Then his teeth, his eyelids. I took my time, made it last, and when I was finally done, when there was nothing left but meat, I ate his soul, swallowed it whole, and it was delicious. Another imbat. The door frame is cracking. I can see wood splitting around the hinges. "You're going to taste even better," she whispers, and now her voice is coming from multiple directions. The door, the window, the walls, everywhere. All that grief, all that guilt. You've been marinating in it for years. You're going to be a feast. The door explodes inward. I see her in the doorway. She still looks like Caroline. The same graying hair, the same flannel shirt, but her mouth is opening too wide, unhinging like a snake's jaw, and inside there's nothing but darkness, empty space that goes on forever. Her hands are too long now, the fingers extending into blackened claws, and her eyes are exactly what Derek described. Black pits, ancient, hungry. She takes a step into the room. "Come here, sweetheart," she says, and her voice is a chorus now, a dozen voices speaking as one. "Let me give you a hug." I'm backed into the corner. There's nowhere to go. The window behind me won't open. I already tried. Even if it did, it's a 20-foot drop to concrete. She's crossing the room, moving wrong, not walking but gliding, her feet not quite touching the floor. I can smell her now. Not Caroline's lavender perfume. This is smoke and rot and something else. Something that smells like the spaces between stars. Nothing. Like void. She's reaching for me. I'm out of time. If you're reading this, if the police find my phone, you need to understand. This thing is real. It's out there. It wears the faces of the dead, and it feeds on grief and acknowledgement. Don't talk to it. Don't look at it. Don't give it anything. And if you see someone you love who's supposed to be dead, run. Her fingers are touching my face now. They're so cold it burns. The darkness in her mouth is spreading, filling my vision. And I can feel it pulling at something inside me. Not my body, something deeper. My soul. I try to scream, but no sound comes out. The last thing I see before the darkness swallows everything is her smile. Caroline's sad, desperate smile. The one that never reached her eyes. And then nothing.